So you come here because your dopamine is cooked, meaning you can't focus for more than 15 minutes. You get motivated for like 3 days and you just fall off. You keep coming back to the same shit like scrolling, anime, video games, beating your meat. And if you're anything like I was, after like 12 plus hour shift at your job where you're all burnt out and you got like another 2-hour commute where you got to sit in traffic miserably or on a train packed full of other miserable people, and then you finally get back home, how could you not have your dopamine messed up after being that burnt out and that miserable, right? And even if you can just push through, do your time, use discipline to push through the burnout and then try to kind of get your work in to then build something which will allow you to escape this cycle. It doesn't work because you're just so burned out. You just end up relapsing. But yet here I am in the middle of the work week, and hopefully you can see this, but it's 12:20 on a Wednesday. While everyone else is grinding away at the work, I am allowed to sit here to make videos on the internet just because I feel like it. Also, having recovered from this right here. The main reason I was able to do that is because I learned how to exploit my dopamine with one rule, which I call the coin rule. And dopamine is the pursuit chemical. And just keep pursuit in mind because it's going to be important later on. It allows you to actually pursue results. And of course, I was completely burnt out and really messed up. And you can see this this sort of not that happy picture of my corporate ID card to get into the building. Having now quit that job because I use these tactics, I'm able to give them to you to give you the best chance of getting escaped while you're completely messed up. And sure, it's at least going to take probably 2 to 4 hours per week, or actually maybe about 2 to 4 hours per day, at least on the weekends. But if you ask me, that is way better than the alternative, which is staying stuck in wherever the hell you are, grinding 12 hours a day with that miserable commute, having some weird discipline dashboard to sort of make yourself feel like you're being productive, or have some weird habit trackers that still don't get you results even after you've like had this habit tracker for like a year and a half. If that all makes sense to you and you don't like any of that other stuff, then let me explain this coin rule. So the first point I want to make is about stacking versus blowing your coins. You can sort of imagine it like if you were playing Black Ops Zombies. If you played a game something like this before, you basically just kill zombies and then you get money, a certain amount of money per round, and then you can use that money that you earned in the round to buy different guns. But for the sake of this argument, let's say every single day or every single round, basically, you wake up every day is like another round of Black Ops Zombies. You can earn a set amount of money, and just say you start with $100 each round, and you can spend that in guns or whatever. And still going with the same example, let's say in Black Ops Zombies, you could buy like a pistol, or you could buy like a ray gun. And this is not exactly accurate to the game. I'm just going to explain it to prove my point. The pistol here is $100, but it's a weak ass weapon. It can barely kill zombies. It takes like 5 bullets. Versus the ray gun, let's say it's $500. It's much more expensive, but it like one-shots hordes of zombies at once. If you just, on day one, every single day, you have this little bit of dopamine, a little bit of coins, a little bit of money, and you just every single day bought a pistol. Well, what good is that going to do? You can't really kill the zombies that effectively, and you still already spent all your money. And now you got like 5 pistols, like, okay, 5 useless items. What good is that going to do you? That's basically the same as going into distractions like scrolling social media, video games. You had this set amount of coins per day, which you didn't really have enough yet to spend on something that is actually more effective, which then gets you stuck in the cycle of basically forced to buy pistols, forced to play video games, forced to watch anime, forced to just beat your meat because, you could literally have not enough dopamine, not enough of the pursuit chemical to actually pursue anything else. Versus if you just take this $100 and let's say you do like on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you didn't spend it on anything. Now on day 5, you would actually have this $500, which would allow you to buy the ray gun, or which would allow you to like invest your dopamine in more productive work that would allow you to actually eventually escape whatever situation that you're in, whether it's like a miserable job or whatever. And of course, you could use this dopamine on things like learning in order to get into a different career that you're more interested in, or of course, actually working on building a business, which maybe probably a lot of you want to do. So this is really the first principle of the coin rule, stacking versus blowing. So instead of just constantly doing the distractions, I know sounds really simple and stupid, but just like don't do the distractions. Of course, you need something alternative. Like I recommend just working out or sleeping or something that is more restful that doesn't actually engage your brain, which means doesn't really use your dopamine, which will allow you to stack up your dopamine and then use that later on. Again, if you buy shit guns, you're going to lose the game. If you buy good guns, you stack up your coins, you stack up your dopamine. To buy good guns, put your time into good investments, put your dopamine into good investments, experiences, then you're going to win the game. You're going to win at life. You're eventually going to get into a situation, a lifestyle that you much more enjoy. Although you might be thinking right now, like, oh shit, it's so simple. Obviously, just stop doing the distractions and then you'll stop cooking your dopamine, which means you'll be able to use your dopamine on more productive things or higher quality investments to, spend those coins on, right? But to be honest, it probably hasn't worked for you because you don't really have that high quality investment, that high quality thing that you actually are interested in spending your time on, which means you can't ever stop the distraction. If that's you right now, it's totally understandable, obviously, because it's quite difficult to pick something that you're truly interested in and then commit to it, right? And a lot of times you're just sort of guessing in the dark. You try one thing, you try the next thing. And, it sort of sucks just guessing in the dark. So if you want an actual good second opinion to solve your problem right now, then top-locking the description is something you might be interested in. But if not, let me continue on the next principle of the coin rule that I'm talking about, which is monk mode versus burnout. You want to get into like actual real monk mode, which is being productive without further burning yourself out from your already burnt out state. So the thing that you need to understand is what I call the coin matrix. It's 4 different quadrants with cost of your coins, so cost of dopamine, and then cost of energy. So typically, the monk mode that most people do, or the work that they force themselves to do through discipline in their free time, it doesn't really take into account energy, which then forces you to get more and more burned out. And I just call this concept coin debt. You'll understand in a little bit how this makes sense, but you overuse your dopamine, which then leads to addiction. And the reason is because you don't take into account energy, which is really bad. So the first quadrant that I want to talk about here is low cost, but also low energy. This is like the solid addiction area. So if you think about it, when you're burnt out from your job, you have super low energy. So you gravitate to the thing that's easiest to do, like both physically and mentally. If you think about it, both physical and mental tasks literally burns energy, burns calories. And the easiest thing to do is like you pick up your phone. Like, what is the amount of energy that you need in order to scroll? This, like you just have to move your thumb, move your finger. You don't have to think about anything. Like you're just seeing it. It's just streaming into your eyes, right? And then also the cost of dopamine is very low. The amount of time between different hits is super low. It just, you get one hit, you scroll, you get the next hit. Just like this, you constantly get hits and hits and hits. So that is the addiction zone because you can continuously keep doing it, even if you have super low dopamine and super low energy, which that's where this coin debt comes in. Say if you only have like 10 dopamine coins left and you have like no energy, but since this costs no energy, you can constantly take a hit, and eventually you're going to be like negative 100 dopamine after scrolling for 5 hours because it didn't cost any energy to do, which allows you to keep spending the dopamine to pursue the next like reel, the next short, the next video game, the next episode of anime. Completely avoid this if you can. Low dopamine tasks, low energy things that cost little is very bad. And then we get into the high cost of energy, but low cost of dopamine. This category I call the Wagie category. It's high energy, so this is like your job. Like you have to go mow a lawn, or you have to sit on your computer and like smack away at your keyboard, making like writing code or crunching numbers on an Excel. It's high energy because it is quite demanding, but you don't really have to think too much, and you also don't really get any dopamine from that because it's not something that you're interested in. But it just drains all your energy, especially if you're doing 8 hours a day. So to be honest, something that you want to avoid, but it's maybe like sort of not have a choice. You eventually just want to think about transition here, but I label this orange just because it's something that you will have to deal with for now, because obviously money is something that you require. And third, we have this low energy but high dopamine cost. I call this the bored zone. In this area, you can think of things like meditation or just going on a walk or literally staring at the wall or reading, things that don't really engage you too much. And by high dopamine cost, I mean just like a longer time delay between when you get the reward after trying to pursue. These things are all restorative tasks. Think about it. It is so boring. It is so boring that your dopamine threshold starts to fall. So you begin to stack up your coins actually. And at the same time, it is super low energy. So if you're already burned out, it's not really going to cost any more energy, which means you can start to, again, recharge, which will start to pull you out of that burnout state. And then once you're out of the burnout state, you can go into this next section here, this last section that I mentioned you do want to transition to, which is the high cost of dopamine, but also high cost of energy because of that longer pursuit time. So as you probably know, say you want to start a business or get into another career, it takes a long time. Like you could prepare for months before you get a job. You could build something for months before you even get it, like even get it out at all, like anyone even sees it. So you get absolutely no results, but you have to put in tons of work. That is the high cost of dopamine, and it's also a very high cost of energy. Not something that you can do once you've done this too much, but it is what is required if you actually want to get out there. So the short of it is, this is what you call monk mode. This is the state that you constantly want to be in. In order to get that state, you have to start with being bored. And in the meantime, you're just going to have to bear with this state right here that you're in, and then completely avoid this addiction state in the coin matrix, which allows you to avoid this coin debt. But now onto the last point, which is, what if you're already in like retarded amounts of coin debt? You've been scrolling for years. You've been playing video games for years. You've been watching anime for like a decade. I've actually been watching anime probably since I was like 5 years old. But don't worry too much yet. You can actually still keep some of these more degenerate activities, these more addiction activities, because I still do watch anime, and like yet here I am. But either way, this is how you pay off your debt, because of course there are distractions that you don't want to do, like scrolling, I'm sure. Probably that activity that you do, which generates those moist tissues that I won't talk about right now. All right, so next point, how to pay off your debt. And again, you can have the cheap pleasure, but only after you pay off your debt. So bring your threshold down so you're at least able to do some work, some productive things before you bring any addicting shit back, or else you're just going to get hooked. So starting with day one, you stop spending on all cheap shit as much as possible and find your good investment, because you're going to require that good investment, that good something to spend your time on, or else like you're just going to be bored all the time. It's not really going to work. This is, of course, your mission tasks or the more boring things. Like again, at least one activity for each of these categories from the coin matrix. And again, top link in the description if you need a little bit help with that. Then once you have that in mind, you go into step 2, which is the first 1 to 3 weeks. It is now to start actually paying off your debts. So you want to live in the monk zone, or that first zone that I called monk mode earlier. To reset your baseline, this takes 2 to 3 weeks. So about 21 days, according to science. Honestly, don't quote me on that, but probably 2 to 3 weeks is enough to make it so that you're off your addictions at the very least. So you've reset your threshold. You've come out of dopamine coin debt. And then step 3 is when you can really start to exploit. So this is 4 weeks plus. So being essentially clean, sober for a whole month. Once the debt is paid, you can strategically spend on cheap pleasure after your investment tasks are done for the day. But be warned, that shit is dangerous. So personally, I think there's 2 ways to do this. So as I mentioned, sometimes I watch anime, and I do it in 2 different ways. I've tested both ways very extensively. The hard way, but maybe it's better a little bit easier for you to start, is that you have your to-do list or wherever you like to just write down your tasks so you don't forget for the day, right? You get that done. And then at the end of the day, you allow yourself to do whatever you want. So you watch your anime, again, after you finish your shit. Or the alternative to doing this is, again, you still do this, but you go into more of like a traditional monk mode or ghost mode or whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really matter. And you only work. You specifically pursue a short-term goal. Like, let's say if you want to get a 6-pack, you just work out like every single day. Maybe that's not recommended, but you don't do anything except for the boring things or the like what you call the monk mode things. And then after like the 30 to 90 days, let's say that you set for your like monk mode, you take 3 days or like a week to just kind of binge your addicting activities. So you can see like your thresholds get super, super low, or you stack up a ton of coins to spend, and then eventually you just fucking spend it all and with your addicting activities. Or you can sort of just take a little bit smoother ride and spend a little bit every single day on addicting shit. Personally, I feel that just the longer term and just super focusing on one thing and then binging is a lot easier for me, because if you're experiencing the addicting stuff every day, it's very easy to just like fall into it, like, oh fuck, I want to play it all the time, I want to watch the anime all the time. Although honestly, just try both and see what works for you. That is how you pay off your debt. But you still might be thinking right now, oh shit, I don't have anything to spend my dopamine coins on. Nothing good to invest on. And for whatever reason, you don't want to click the top link in the description to get my help directly. You can actually just watch this video right here where I talk about my 3-year framework on finding your mission that you'll be willing to suffer through, that you're willing to put the time through no matter how burned out or fucked up you are. Just click it right now and go watch it. I'll walk you through my 3-year framework. Probably one of the most important videos that you could watch, because once you have this mission, essentially, then a lot of things fall into place, in my opinion. All right, so click it and I'll see you there.